Ghana is a multi-ethnic country rich in natural resources and is one of the most stable and democratic countries in West Africa. Ghana has been inhabited for at least several thousand years, but little is known about its early inhabitants. By the 12th century, the gold trade started to boom in Bonoman state in what is today southern Ghana, and it became the genesis of the Akan people's power and wealth in the region. Beginning in the 15th century, the Portuguese, followed by other European powers, arrived and competed for trading rights. Numerous kingdoms and empires emerged in the area. Among the most powerful were the Kingdom of Daban in the north and the Ashanti Empire in the south. By the mid-18th century, Ashanti was a highly organized state with immense wealth. It provided enslaved people for the Atlantic slave trade, and in return received firearms that facilitated its territorial expansion. The Ashanti resisted increasing British influence in the coastal areas, engaging in a series of wars during the 19th century before ultimately falling under British control. Formed from the merger of the British colony of the Gold Coast and the Togo Land Trust Territory, Ghana in 1957 became the first sub-Saharan country in colonial Africa to gain its independence, with Kwame Nkrumah as its first leader. Ghana endured a series of coups before Lt. Jerry Rawlings took power in 1981 and banned political parties. After approving a new constitution and restoring multi-party politics in 1992, Rawlings won presidential elections in 1992 and 1996 but was constitutionally prevented from running for a third term in 2000. John Kufuor of the opposition New Patriotic Party, NPP, succeeded him and was re-elected in 2004. John Atta Mills of the National Democratic Congress won the 2008 presidential election and took over as head of state. Mills died in 2012 and was constitutionally succeeded by his vice president, John Dramani Mahama, who subsequently won the 2012 presidential election. In 2016, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo of the NPP defeated Mahama, marking the third time that Ghana's presidency had changed parties since the return to democracy. Akufo-Addo was re-elected in 2020. In recent years, Ghana has taken an active role in promoting regional stability and is highly integrated in international affairs. Lake Volta is the world's largest artificial lake, man-made reservoir, by surface area, 8,482 square kilometers, 3,275 square miles. The lake was created following the completion of the Ekosambo Dam in 1965, which holds back the White Volta and Black Volta rivers. Ghana has a young age structure, with approximately 56% of the population under the age of 25 as of 2020. Its total fertility rate fell significantly during the 1980s and 1990s but has stalled at around 4 children per woman for the last few years. Fertility remains higher in the northern region than the Greater Accra region. On average, desired fertility has remained stable for several years. Urban dwellers want fewer children than rural residents. Increased life expectancy, due to better healthcare, nutrition, and hygiene, and reduced fertility have increased Ghana's share of elderly persons. Ghana's proportion of persons aged 60 plus is among the highest in sub-Saharan Africa. Poverty has declined in Ghana, but it remains pervasive in the northern region, which is susceptible to droughts and floods and has less access to transportation infrastructure, markets, fertile farming land, and industrial centers. The northern region also has lower school enrollment, higher illiteracy, and fewer opportunities for women. Ghana was a country of immigration in the early years after its 1957 independence, attracting labor migrants largely from Nigeria and other neighboring countries to mine minerals and harvest cocoa. Immigrants composed about 12% of Ghana's population in 1960. In the late 1960s, worsening economic and social conditions discouraged immigration, and hundreds of thousands of immigrants, mostly Nigerians, were expelled. During the 1970s, severe drought and an economic downturn transformed Ghana into a country of emigration. Neighboring Cote d'Ivoire was the initial destination. Later, hundreds of thousands of Ghanaians migrated to Nigeria to work in its booming oil industry, but most were deported in 1983 and 1985 as oil prices plummeted. Many Ghanaians then turned to more distant destinations, including other parts of Africa, Europe, and North America, but the majority continued to migrate within West Africa. Since the 1990s, increased emigration of skilled Ghanaians, especially to the US and the UK, drained the country of its healthcare and education professionals. Internally, poverty and other developmental disparities continue to drive Ghanaians from the north to the south, particularly to its urban centers. Flag description: 3 equal horizontal bands of red, top, yellow, and green, with a large black 5-pointed star centered in the yellow band. Red symbolizes the bloodshed for independence, yellow represents the country's mineral wealth, while green stands for its forests and natural wealth. The black star is said to be the lodestar of African freedom. Children in Ghana begin 2 years of kindergarten at age 4. Then all children ages 6 to 12 attend 6 years of elementary education. If families can afford it, children go on to secondary education. Ghana's school system is more advanced than many of its African neighbors. There are over 50 different ethnic groups in Ghana, each with their own customs and languages. But the country is harmonious and peaceful. The Akan tribe is the largest group and makes up about 45% of the population. They live mostly in villages and grow their food on farms. The traditional cloth of the Ghanaian people is the bright and colorful Kent cloth. In the north, the men wear loose flowing clothes made of darker cloth. Ghanaians love soccer and built a large soccer stadium in the capital of Accra. Soccer is the national sport. Kofi Annan is one of the most well-known Ghanaians. He served as Secretary General of the United Nations from 1997-2006. There are 6 national parks and many smaller nature reserves, which were set up to help protect Ghana's wildlife. There are over 650 butterfly species in the Kakum National Park, including the giant swallowtails, which are nearly 8 inches, 20 centimeters, across. The park is also home to leopards, hornbills, Diana monkeys, flying squirrels, and scarlet-tailed African gray parrots. Elephants, leopards, wild buffalo, and antelope were once plentiful across the savanna, but now are found mostly in nature reserves. Elephants, crocodiles, warthogs, and hippos can be seen around the watering holes in the Mole National Park. Poisonous snakes such as the cobra and puff adder are native to Ghana, as are pythons, which don't bite, but can squeeze their victims to death. The baobab tree grows in the northern parts Ghana and other savannas in Africa. Ghanaians eat the large, gourd-like fruit. They make barrels from the trunk. The tree provides shade from the sun, and the bark can be made into rope and clothing. The Volta River was dammed in the 1960s and created Lake Volta, one of the Earth's largest artificial lakes. Agricultural products: cassava, yams, plantains, maize, oil palm fruit, taro, rice, cocoa, oranges, pineapples. Industries: industrial production made of mining, lumbering, light manufacturing, aluminum smelting, food processing, cement, small commercial shipbuilding, petroleum. General assessment: challenged by unreliable electricity and shortage of skilled labor, Ghana seeks to extend telecom services nationally. Investment in fiber infrastructure and off-grid solutions provide data coverage to over 23 million people. Launch of LTE has improved mobile data services, including m-commerce and banking. Moderately competitive internet market, most through mobile networks. International submarine cables and terrestrial cables have improved internet capacity. LTE services are widely available. The relatively high cost of 5G-compatible devices also inhibits most subscribers from migrating from 3G and LTE platforms. 2022. International, country code, 233, Internet country code.gh. Broadcast media: state-owned TV station, 2 state-owned radio networks, several privately owned TV stations and a large number of privately owned radio stations. Transmissions of multiple international broadcasters are accessible, several cable and satellite TV subscription services are obtainable. The military's primary missions are border defense, assisting with internal security, peacekeeping, and protecting the country's territorial waters, particularly its offshore oil and gas infrastructure. It has benefited from cooperation with foreign partners, such as the UK and the US, and experience gained from participation in multiple international peacekeeping missions. The government in recent years has committed to an increase in funding for equipment acquisitions, including armor, mechanized, and special forces capabilities for the Army, light attack aircraft for the Air Force, and more modern coastal patrol vessels for the Navy. The Army's primary combat forces include several battalions of light infantry, a motorized rapid reaction/Presidential Guard battalion, and small regiments of light armored reconnaissance and special forces. The Navy has 2 ocean-going patrol vessels, several coastal patrol craft, and a special forces unit, while the Air Force operates a few ground attack aircraft and multipurpose helicopters. In 2022, Ghana began beefing up its military presence in the north of the country against threats from the terrorist organization Jamaat Nasr al-Islam wal Muslimin, JNIM, a coalition of al-Qaeda-linked militant groups, which has conducted attacks in the neighboring countries of Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, and Togo. Ghana's northern frontier with Burkina Faso is also an area with well-established smuggling routes, porous borders, and illegal gold mining. Ghana has also pushed an initiative to bolster security cooperation and intelligence sharing among Gulf of Guinea neighbors and Sahel countries. The military traces its origins to the Gold Coast Constabulary that was established in 1879 and renamed the Gold Coast Regiment in 1901. The Gold Coast Regiment was part of the West African Frontier Force, WAF, a multi-regiment force formed by the British Colonial Office in 1900 to garrison the West African colonies of Gold Coast, Ghana, Nigeria, Lagos and the protectorates of northern and southern Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and Gambia. The WAF served with distinction in both East and West Africa during World War I. In 1928, it received royal recognition and was renamed the Royal West African Frontier Force, RUF. The RUF went on to serve in World War II as part of the British 81st and 82nd, West African, divisions in the East Africa and Burma campaigns. Following independence in 1957, the Gold Coast Regiment formed the basis for the new Ghanaian Army, 2023. Before the Europeans arrived in search of gold, the west coast of Africa was part of an ancient trade route. In 1471, Portuguese traders came ashore and noticed that the local people wore gold jewelry. People from Portugal, Denmark, the Netherlands, Germany, and Britain came to the Gold Coast to search for gold. The British took control of the country in the 20th century and declared the Gold Coast a colony of the British Empire. In 1957, the Gold Coast gained its independence from Britain and became known as Ghana. After many corrupt governments, Ghana's new leader in 1981, Jerry Rawlings, vowed to stop corruption. Democracy involving many parties started in 1992 when a new constitution was adopted. Thank you for watching this video.